The applause inside the grand ballroom of the Hanseong Trade Center was deafening, a roaring tide of high society approval. But to Min-jae, it was nothing but empty white noise. He adjusted his silk tie, feeling the fabric restrict his throat like a gilded collar. His eyes remained glazed over as he stared toward the massive illuminated stage. "Sir, you need to look engaged," his assistant, Secretary Kang, whispered sharply from the adjacent seat, barely moving his lips. The main network cameras are pointing directly at the VIP row. This competition is our biggest public relations push of the fiscal year. The press is looking for any sign of disinterest from the Hanseong Group heir. "I am looking engaged, Kang," Min-jae replied, his voice a low, cool baritone that carried a lifetime of practiced indifference. "My face is oriented toward the stage. My eyes are open. I am simply refusing to process a single word they are saying." "With all due respect, sir, the board of directors is watching your posture," Kang muttered, shifting slightly to block the camera's view of Min-jae's slumped shoulders. "And the chairman specifically requested a personal write-up on your thoughts regarding the finalists." Min-jae let out a quiet, humorless breath. "My grandmother wants a report on children playing with Legos and block coding applications? I have 3 hostile takeovers to authorize by Friday, Kang. Tell her I found the youth of the world incredibly inspiring, and leave it at that." "The next presenter is the youngest finalist from our North American division," Kang said, tapping his tablet to bring up the speaker profile. "She is only 9 years old. Her name is Amara Carter. The media is already calling her a prodigy." Min-jae didn't reply. His mind, as it always did when he was forced to sit still in these suffocating corporate spectacles, wandered back 9 years. Back to the drafts of a life he had been forced to discard. Back to the cramped, drafty rooftop apartment in Sinchon, where he had been happiest. Back to the delicate scent of jasmine tea and the sound of a woman's rich, unrestrained laugh that had once been his entire world. "Simone, I cannot abandon my responsibilities to Hanseong Group. Return to America. It is for the best." Those were the words he had supposedly written to her. Or at least, those were the words his grandmother, the formidable Chairman Lee, had shown him in a forged draft when they coldly informed him that Simone had taken a multi-million won payoff and fled back to California without looking back. And he, broken, proud, and deeply wounded, had believed them. He had spent 9 years hardening his heart, burying his grief beneath mergers and acquisitions, becoming the ruthless, unyielding CEO the Lee family demanded him to be. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed over the high-fidelity speakers, shaking him from his reverie. Representing Bright Futures Educational Technologies, presenting her proprietary AI learning companion, Amara Carter. A young girl walked onto the massive stage. She was wearing a neatly pressed navy blazer over a bright yellow dress. Her dark skin glowed warm under the harsh stage lights, and her hair was styled in beautiful, intricate braids that cascaded down her shoulders. She carried herself with an uncanny, quiet confidence that instantly made the whispering, cynical room fall completely silent. Min-jae sat up straight. His heart gave a strange, violent thud against his ribs, a physical reaction he couldn't explain. "Hello, everyone," Amara said, her voice clear, resonant, and completely devoid of stage fright. She spoke in perfect English, her American accent crisp and commanding. Standardized education assumes every child learns at the exactly same speed, using the exact same pathways. But a child with dyslexia, ADHD, or processing differences doesn't have a broken mind. They simply have a unique operating system. My program, Aegis, adapts to their cognitive processing in real time, rewriting the curriculum on the fly. Min-jae's breath caught in his throat. He wasn't looking at her slides. He wasn't processing the brilliant logic of her presentation. He was looking at her eyes. They were wide, sharp, and a deep, highly intelligent dark brown. No, it's impossible, it can't be. She's brilliant, sir, Kang murmured, leaning closer, his own eyes wide with genuine appreciation. The investors are already sitting up. Look at the crowd. They absolutely love her. Kang, Min-jae said, his voice dropping to a harsh, strained whisper. Who did you say her mother was? Her mother is Dr. Simone Carter, sir. She's the founder of the educational firm backing the project, a brilliant academic from California. We actually tried to acquire her firm last fiscal quarter, but she summarily rejected our invitation. Min-jae didn't hear another word. His gaze frantically scanned the front row of the VIP audience, where the families of the international competitors sat. There, sitting in the center seat, was a woman wearing an elegant, tailored emerald green suit. Her hair was swept up in a sophisticated style, and her posture was regal, untouched by the intimidating wealth of the Hanseong ballroom. She was clapping, a radiant, proud smile on her face that made the entire room fade into a blur. Min-jae gripped the polished armrests of his chair so hard his knuckles turned stark white, the leather creaking under his grip. Simone, he whispered, the name tearing from his throat like a ghost. Sir? Kang asked, startled by the sudden tension in his boss's posture. Did you say something? Are you feeling unwell? Your pulse is showing elevated levels on your smartwatch. On stage, Amara finished her presentation with a bright, triumphant smile. Because every child deserves a system that understands them, not just one that grades them. Thank you. The room erupted into a standing ovation. Amara bowed politely, a perfect, elegant gesture. As she did, she turned slightly to wave at her mother in the front row. Her braids shifted over her shoulder, exposing the smooth skin at the back of her neck. Right at the base of her skull, stark and dark against her skin, was a distinct, crescent-shaped mark. Min-jae felt the air leave his lungs entirely. The exact same mark was hidden beneath his own collar, a rare genetic anomaly passed down through 5 generations of Lee firstborns. He stood up abruptly, the sudden movement knocking his leather-bound program to the floor with a heavy thud. Sir, the ceremony isn't over. We have the award presentation. Kang, Min-jae commanded, his voice shaking with a raw, overwhelming emotion his assistant had never heard in all his years of loyal service. Cancel my afternoon meetings, all of them. Sir, you have the executive board of directors meeting in 30 minutes. They are voting on the Hanseong Electronics merger. Cancel them. Min-jae turned to Kang, his eyes burning with a desperate, terrifying fire. And get me everything on that child. Every document, every record, every flight log. Do not use the company network. Use your personal channels. Go. 2 hours later, Min-jae sat in the holding room of his private office suite, the blinds tightly drawn. The digital file Kang had compiled was open on his tablet, the bright screen illuminating his pale, drawn face. Her name is Amara Carter, Kang said, standing at attention, his voice uncharacteristically soft. Born in Los Angeles, California. Her birth certificate lists the father as unknown. Her mother is Dr. Simone Carter, who founded Bright Futures 5 years ago. They have no record of ever receiving any funds from any Korean entity. In fact, Dr. Carter rejected 3 separate major venture capital offers from Asian firms last year. Because she knew Hanseong had stakes in those firms, Min-jae muttered, his fingers trembling as he zoomed in on the child's birth certificate. She wanted nothing to do with us. She was protecting her and the birth date. Exactly 9 months and 4 days after Dr. Carter left Seoul, sir. Kang confirmed quietly. There is no doubt. She is your daughter. Min-jae closed his eyes as a wave of profound, suffocating guilt washed over him, followed by a cold, sharp anger that burned through his veins. 9 years. I lost 9 years of my daughter's life because of a lie. I let my family convince me She abandoned me for money. Why didn't she contact me, Kang? Min-jae asked, his voice cracking. Even if she hated my family, why wouldn't she tell me she was pregnant? She knew how much I wanted a family with her. Perhaps she thought you were the one who didn't want it, sir, Kang suggested gently, looking down. If she received communication claiming to be from you, rejecting her, Min-jae stood up, his resolve hardening. Where are they staying? The Hanseong Palace Hotel, penthouse suite, Kang replied. But sir, Dr. Carter has already booked a private flight back to Los Angeles for tomorrow morning. She did not register for the post-competition gala. She's avoiding you. They aren't leaving, Min-jae said, grabbing his coat and walking toward the private elevator. Not until she looks me in the eye and tells me the truth. The heavy mahogany door of the penthouse suite opened slowly. Simone stood there, her polite, professional smile fading instantly into a cold, hard mask the moment her eyes landed on him. Min-jae, she said, her voice dropping to a freezing register. I should have known you'd track us down. Your family's surveillance state is as efficient as ever. Simone, he said, his chest rising and falling rapidly as he struggled to maintain his composure. We need to talk. Please. Just 5 minutes. We have absolutely nothing to talk about. My daughter and I are leaving for the airport in the morning, and we have packing to finish. She started to close the door, but Min-jae placed his hand firmly against the solid wood, refusing to yield. She is my daughter, isn't she? Min-jae asked, his voice cracking under the weight of 9 years of agony. Amara, she has the birthmark, Simone. The Hanseong crescent. It's passed down through my family's generations. Don't lie to me, please. Simone let out a sharp, bitter laugh that cut through the quiet hallway. She opened the door wide, stepping back but blocking the entryway to the suite like a shield. Lie to you? That's rich coming from a Lee. Tell me, did your grandmother send you to offer me another payoff check? Or did you just come to admire your family's handiwork? Because let me tell you, I didn't take a single one then, and I won't take a single cent now. What are you talking about? Min-jae stepped into the room, his eyes desperate, searching her face for any sign of the woman he had loved. I didn't know, Simone. I swear to you on my life I had no idea you were pregnant. I didn't even know why you left Seoul. Oh, please, Simone snapped, crossing her arms tightly, her eyes flashing with a decade's worth of resentment. You expect me to believe that? You wrote the letter, Min-jae. You told me that Hanseong was your future, that an international student from California would only drag you down. You told me to go back to America and never look back. You signed it with your own personal seal. I never wrote that, Min-jae roared, stepping closer, his corporate composure completely shattering. I spent 3 months trying to find you. I flew to LA. I went to your university, but their administration told me you had transferred and left absolutely no forwarding address. I was completely lost. Don't lie to me, Min-jae, Simone shouted back, tears finally spilling over her lashes. You were the golden heir. You had all the resources in the world. If you wanted to find me, you would have. Instead, I got a registered letter from your family's legal department, attached to a draft of a letter written in your exact handwriting, telling me that you had agreed to marry a minister's daughter for the sake of the Hanseong succession. A minister's daughter? Min-jae stared at her, horrified. I never married anyone, Simone. I've been completely alone for 9 years. I refused every single match my family tried to arrange. I thought you were the one who left me. I received a letter from you saying you had met someone else, someone whose world you could actually fit into. It was written in your handwriting. It was signed with your name. I never wrote that, Simone whispered, her voice suddenly losing its defensive edge, replaced by a cold, sickening realization. I loved you, Min-jae. I was carrying our baby. I would have lived in that tiny, cold apartment forever with you. Why would I ask for money?" "Then who?" Min-jae started, but the answer was already forming in his mind, cold and ugly. The calculating faces of his grandmother, Chairman Lee, and his complicit father. "Mom?" Both of them froze. Amara was standing in the hallway of the suite, holding a tablet, her brow furrowed in deep analysis. She looked between Simone's tear-stained face and Min-jae's tense, desperate posture. "Who is he?" Amara asked, her voice calm, logical, and demanding. "And why does he look exactly like the man on the Hanseong Group corporate website?" Simone wiped a tear from her cheek quickly, trying to shield her daughter. "Amara, honey, go back to your room for a minute. We're just discussing business." "He's my father, isn't he?" Amara asked. Her dark brown eyes locked onto Min-jae. "I ran a facial symmetry match on my tablet when he stood up in the VIP row. The probability of paternal match is 99.7%, and we have the same birthmark." The room went dead silent. Min-jae looked at the little girl, seeing his own stubborn jawline reflected in her face. His heart swelled with a mixture of overwhelming love and devastating, crushing sorrow. He dropped to his knees, bringing himself to her eye level, ignoring the expensive fabric of his suit pressing against the carpet. "Yes," Min-jae said, his voice barely a whisper, thick with tears. "I am, and I am so sorry I wasn't there to watch you grow." Amara looked at him, her expression incredibly serious. "Why weren't you? If you're a billionaire, why did my mom have to work 3 jobs when I was a baby?" Min-jae looked up at Simone, whose eyes were filled with warning and protective pain. He looked back at his daughter, his heart breaking at the image of Simone struggling alone. "I was foolish. I let bad people tell me lies, and I didn't fight hard enough to find the truth. But I am here now, and I will never believe a lie about you again." Amara studied him for a long, silent moment, then turned to her mother. "Mom, is he telling the truth?" "I don't know yet, Amara," Simone said quietly, her voice trembling. "But for now, I think he needs to leave. We have a lot of things we need to sort out." Min-jae stood up slowly, feeling the distance between them like a physical chasm. He looked at Simone, his eyes pleading. "Please, just give me 24 hours to prove it to you. I will find out exactly what they did. I will make this right." Simone didn't answer. She simply held the door open, her expression unreadable. Min-jae took a deep breath, looked at Amara one last time, and walked out into the cold night. The library of the ancestral Lee family estate was suffocatingly quiet, smelling of old leather, paper, and ancient power. Chairman Lee, Min-jae's grandmother, sat in her high-backed mahogany chair, calmly sipping her traditional tea. His father, Lee Dong-wook, stood by the window, staring out over the manicured gardens. Min-jae slammed a thick leather folder onto the polished table, the impact shattering the heavy silence. "Explain this," Min-jae said, his voice dangerously calm, vibrating with a quiet fury. His father glanced at the folder, but didn't make a move to open it. "Min-jae, you are the active CEO of a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. You shouldn't be wasting your valuable time throwing tantrums over archived administrative files." "Archived files?" Min-jae laughed bitterly, the sound sharp and humorless. "These are bank transfers to a private investigator agency in California 9 years ago. And these are handwriting forgery templates of Simone Carter's signature, complete with correspondence notes. It was you, both of you. We did what was necessary for the survival of the Hanseong dynasty, Min-jae, and we will do it again. I don't care how much she is worth now or what her bastard child has accomplished." His grandmother said, setting her teacup down with a soft, deliberate clink. "She was a temporary international student with no background, no family connections, and no standing in Korean high society. Even with millions, she does not belong as a part of the Hanseong dynasty." The scandal that you have an illegitimate child with a black woman from America would ruin our family dynasty and our company stability. We secured your future. We made you the man you are today." His father stepped forward. "You will disown them and marry the daughter of our greatest business partner, or we will destroy her and everything she and her daughter have built." He said it so matter-of-factly that it was almost comical. "You knew that they were here. You've been watching her all of this time, just to make sure she never learned the truth. You stole my daughter," Min-jae shouted, slamming his fist on the mahogany table, rattling the delicate porcelain cups. "You stole 9 years of my life. You made me believe the only woman I ever loved abandoned me for a check. And look at you now," his grandmother said coldly, her expression entirely unbothered by his rage. "You are the most respected young CEO in the country. You married the business, just as you were destined to do. We gave you everything, and we intend to make sure you keep it." "You gave me nothing but a gold-plated cage," Min-jae spat, looking at his family with utter disgust. "I am done living in it." "Min-jae, be reasonable," his father urged, stepping forward, his hands raised in a placating gesture. "The market is highly volatile right now. If the board of directors hears even a whisper of this scandal, the Hanseong Electronics merger will fall through. We are talking about trillions of won in valuation. Do you honestly think I care about the stock price right now?" Min-jae asked, stepping closer to his father, his eyes cold and menacing. "You forged my signature. You threatened the woman I loved while she was pregnant with my child. You let my daughter grow up in a foreign country without a father, wondering why she wasn't wanted. How do you sleep at night?" "We sleep very well, knowing that Hanseong remains at the top of the financial sector," Chairman Lee replied, her eyes narrowing into cold slits. "You are being incredibly emotional, Min-jae. That girl is an American. She does not speak our language. She does not know our culture, and she has no place in this family." "She has my blood, grandmother," Min-jae said, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "She has the birthmark. She has the intellectual drive that you always boasted was the trademark of the Lee lineage. She is more of a Lee than either of you will ever be, because she has integrity." "What do you mean you are done?" his father demanded, stepping forward, his corporate mask slipping to reveal panic. "The critical board meeting is tomorrow morning. We are announcing the international merger. You cannot walk away now." "I resign," Min-jae said, his voice steady, resolute, and completely free. "And I am revoking my family succession rights, effective immediately." "You wouldn't dare. Not if you don't want to destroy your so-called family," Chairman Lee warned, her hand trembling slightly as she gripped the armrest of her chair. "You would throw away the Hanseong succession? For a woman who has built an entire life without you? For a child who doesn't even know your name?" "I would throw away 10 Hanseongs for one single day with my daughter," Min-jae said, looking his grandmother dead in the eye. "Leave my family alone, or you will regret it." Min-jae turned and walked upstairs out the doors without looking back. Once in the car, Min-jae called Simone. "Hello? Can we talk for a second? How did you get my number? Never mind. Talk about what? What excuse do you have that will keep you from keeping your word?" Simone stated as if she expected nothing less. "They have threatened my family," Min-jae said with a menacing tone. "What do you mean who is threatening your family, and what does that have to do with Amara and I?" "You are my family, you and Amara. You are the only I have now, and I am not letting you go. I have told them I am leaving, and I meant that. They knew you were here and had a plan to destroy you if you attempted to reestablish our relationship. I didn't fight hard enough back then, but I'm a different man with nothing to lose but you and Amara." Simone asked simply, "What is your plan for fighting back?" Let me determine whether or not I want to be a part of it and its potential harm to me and my child. Our child. I am not losing either one of you again. I am calling a press conference in the morning. I will announce my immediate resignation, and I will state the exact, unfiltered reason why. I will let the entire world know that the leadership of Hanseong Group is built on blackmail, forgery, and the theft of a child. Simone gasped, sitting down on the edge of the desk. Min-jae, that will completely ruin your company and everything you have built. It will destroy your family reputation overnight. You will be ruined. It is already ruined. I am doing it, and not even you can stop me. Then, I suggest they should prepare their public apology, Min-jae said. He turned on his wheel, and the next afternoon, the rain tapped softly against the glass window of a small, quiet cafe tucked away in a quiet corner of Seoul. Simone sat at a corner table, holding a warm mug of tea, watching the steam rise. Min-jae sat across from her. He looked exhausted, his expensive tie gone, his collar open. But for the first time in 9 years, his eyes looked alive. You really did it, Simone said, staring at the fresh newspaper on the table. The headline read, Lee Min-jae resigns as CEO of Hanseong Group, cites personal family reconciliations. You gave up the entire company, just like that. I gave up the succession. They are lucky I didn't expose everything and destroy them, Min-jae corrected gently, a soft smile appearing on his face. I still own my private shares, which means I have more than enough to live comfortably and never have to answer to my grandmother's demands again. But yes, I walked away. Why? Simone asked, her voice soft, searching his face for any lingering regret. You loved that company. You worked your entire life to prove you were worthy of leading it. I remember how you used to stay up until 3 a.m. studying financial models. I loved you more, Min-jae said simply, looking directly into her eyes. And I already lost 9 years of watching our daughter grow up. I won't lose another day to that family. The financial models were just a distraction to keep me from thinking about the giant hole you left in my life. Simone looked down, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. I built a life, Min-jae. I built a successful company. I don't need Hanseong's billions. I don't need your family's approval. I don't want your money. I know, Min-jae said, his voice filled with genuine pride. I read everything about bright futures. You are incredible, Simone. You did it all on your own. I don't want to buy my way into your lives. I want to earn my way in, if you will let me try. I can't just forgive you overnight, Min-jae. The anger, it's been my armor for 9 years. It kept me strong when I was working 12-hour shifts at the university labs and coming home to a crying baby. It kept me going when I couldn't afford rent. Simone's voice shook, her fingers tightening around her mug. I used to look at Amara and feel this overwhelming sadness because she had your smile, and I hated myself for still loving the man who I thought had discarded us. I am so sorry, Simone, Min-jae whispered, reaching across the table, his hand stopping just short of touching hers. I would have crawled across the globe if I had known. Please, let me show you that I am not the man my family wanted me to be. Amara deserves to know her father, Simone said quietly, her eyes serious. She is incredibly smart, and she's already asking a million technical questions about you. But let's make one thing absolutely clear. Being her father is not a title you get to just wear to look good. It's a daily responsibility. You show up when you say you will. You listen to her, and you respect my boundaries. I promise, Min-jae said. Whatever you need, I'll do it. If I have to start from scratch, I will. Over the next 6 months, Min-jae kept his promise to the letter. He didn't send expensive, overwhelming gifts. Instead, he showed up at her local robotics scrimmages in Seoul. He sat quietly in the back row, taking detailed notes in a plain leather notebook. "My dad is staring at my code again," Amara whispered to her mother during a weekend project at their rented apartment in Seoul. "Is he bothering you?" Simone asked, smiling as she chopped fresh vegetables for dinner, watching them from the kitchen. "No," Amara said, though she tried to hide her small smirk. "But he's standing there like he's trying to memorize the Python syntax. It's kind of funny. Most rich adults just check their phones." Min-jae walked over, carrying a plate of freshly sliced fruit. "I brought snacks. And for the record, Amara, your logic loop on line 42 is highly efficient, but you could reduce the latency by 5% if you nested the callback function." Amara stared at him, her eyes wide with sudden interest. "You actually know Python?" "I majored in electrical engineering before my family forced me to switch to business," Min-jae said, sitting cross-legged on the floor next to her low desk. "I used to build custom microcontrollers in my university dorm room. I actually hold 3 patents in hardware design that I filed before I became CEO." "Why did you stop?" Amara asked, her tone shifting from skeptical to curious. "Engineering is much cooler than being a CEO. All CEOs do is sign papers and look angry in suits." Min-jae laughed, a genuine, warm sound. "You're entirely right, Amara. I stopped because I let myself believe that duty was more important than passion. But now, I think I'd rather help you with your project than sit in a boardroom." Amara looked at him with a brand new sense of appreciation. "Okay, show me how you'd nest the callback. But if you break my code, you have to buy me the high-torque servo motors I wanted for my next build." "Deal," Min-jae smiled, leaning in to look at the screen. For the next 2 hours, the two of them sat side by side, their heads bent over the glowing laptop screen. Simone watched them from the kitchen, her heart aching with a warmth she hadn't felt in nearly a decade. They had the exact same habit of tapping their chin when they were thinking, and the exact same stubborn, defiant tilt of the head when a line of code failed to run. Later that evening, after Simone had tucked Amara into bed, she walked out to the living room to find Min-jae quietly cleaning up the coding notes from the table. "You're very good with her," Simone said softly, leaning against the doorframe. "She is incredibly easy to love," Min-jae said, looking up, his expression soft. "She has your determination, Simone, and your grace. She doesn't let anyone push her around." "She has your stubbornness," Simone countered, but her voice was warm, the icy armor finally melting away. "And your laugh. When she is really focused, she makes the exact same face you used to make when you were trying to solve those advanced calculus problems." Min-jae smiled, stepping closer. "Simone, I know I still have a very long way to go, but I hope you know I'm not going anywhere. I want to be here for the coding bugs, the bad days, the awards, and everything in between." "I'm starting to believe you," she said, her voice a gentle whisper in the quiet room. 3 months later, the three of them were sitting in a quiet, cozy Italian restaurant in downtown Seoul. It had quickly become their favorite weekly tradition. "So," Amara said, winding spaghetti around her fork with practiced precision, "Mom says we are extending our stay in Korea for another year. Bright Futures is officially opening a Seoul branch office." "Really?" Min-jae looked at Simone, his eyes shining with sudden hope. "You didn't tell me." "We just finalized the commercial lease today," Simone said, a slight blush rising to her cheeks. "I figured, since someone is helping Amara with her advanced robotics curriculum, we should probably stick around. Plus, the engineering talent in Seoul is incredible for our AI development." "This is amazing," Min-jae said, reaching across the table to gently place his hand over Simone's. This time, she didn't pull away. Her fingers wrapped warmly around his. I can help you with the local regulatory filings. I still have a few contacts who aren't afraid of my grandmother. I might take you up on that, Mr. Lee, Simone said, her eyes sparkling. But only if you promise not to try and run the office. I am still the boss. I wouldn't dare challenge your authority, Dr. Carter. Min-jae smiled, squeezing her hand. I spent so many years hating myself, Simone. I spent so many years believing you stopped loving me. We let them win for 9 years, Simone replied quietly, her voice full of emotion. But not anymore. We are here now. Amara sighed dramatically, setting her fork down with a soft clink. You two still love each other. It's so incredibly obvious. Simone nearly choked on her water. Amara! What did I say about being too blunt at the dinner table? Min-jae hid a laugh behind his linen napkin. I'm just observing the available data, Amara said, shrugging her shoulders logically. You look at each other like the people in those cheesy Korean dramas Mom watches when she thinks I'm fast asleep. And Dad, you've been holding her hand for 5 minutes without eating your lasagna. Amara! Simone's face was now bright red. I'm just saying, Amara continued, rolling her eyes playfully. You're both adults. You're making this much harder than it needs to be. Just date already, so we can finally be a normal family. Min-jae looked at Simone, his expression tender and full of hope. She makes a very compelling data-driven argument, Dr. Carter. What do you say? Will you go on an official first date with me this Saturday? Simone looked from her brilliant, sassy daughter to the man she had loved since she was 21 years old. The anger was entirely gone, replaced by peace. I think, Simone said, her eyes sparkling with tears of happiness, that the data is absolutely conclusive. Saturday works for me. For the first time in 9 years, their shared laughter filled the room, loud, warm, and entirely free. 1 year later, the stage of the Global Tech Pioneers Summit in San Francisco was magnificent, bathed in bright blue spotlights. Amara Carter, now 10 years old, stood proudly holding the grand prize trophy for her fully realized Aegis AI platform. The press swarm was immense, a sea of cameras and flashing lights. As Amara walked down the steps to join her parents, the crowd parted. Min-jae, dressed in a sharp, casual suit, and Simone, stunning in a red silk gown, stood on either side of her, their arms wrapped tightly around her shoulders. A reporter pushed a microphone forward through the crowd. Mr. Lee, since your departure from Hanseong Group, the conglomerate has struggled in the market, while your private consulting firm has helped launch the most successful educational tech startup of the year. Many in the industry are calling this your greatest professional comeback. Would you agree? Min-jae looked down at Amara, who was beaming up at him, and then at Simone, whose hand was resting comfortably in his pocket. No, Min-jae said, his voice carrying clearly over the microphone, firm and resolute. My business success has never been my greatest achievement. Then what is, Mr. Lee? The reporter pressed, eager for a headline. Min-jae looked at Simone, his eyes filled with a lifetime of devotion. The greatest blessing of my life, Min-jae said, was finding my way back to my family. Everything else is just details. Across the crowded room, under the bright lights, Simone leaned up and kissed his cheek. After 9 long years in the dark, they had finally, truly, found their way home.